if I told you every single Beyonce era was already written in her birth chart before they even existed? Because when you actually connect her albums to her birth chart, you begin to see what patterns start to emerge. From the soft romantic vulnerability of Dangerously in Love, to the fiercely bold and high energy of B-Day, to the dual identity of Sasha Fierce, to the raw, emotional storytelling of Lemonade, and the cultural reset of Renaissance. They all line up almost perfectly with key points in her chart. So in this video, we're breaking down every Beyonce album through astrology. And once you begin to see the pattern, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's begin with her debut solo album, Dangerously in Love. The themes of this album are romantic devotion, identity, and vulnerability. Beyonce's 5th house Virgo sun represents her stepping into her solo artistry. It's her precision and craftsmanship on show for the first time. Her Libra stellium represents the love and relationship themes throughout the album, and then her 7th house Scorpio moon represents her emotional depth, intimacy, and sensual vulnerability. Her Venus aspects also add to the album too. Her Libra Venus conjuncts Pluto and brings the intense, almost love-obsessed energy to the album. And then Venus sextile Neptune brings the dreamy, romantic, and ethereal sound. Crazy in Love, I think, represents Libra's attraction and Scorpio's obsession perfectly. Dangerously in Love 2 is her Scorpio moon's emotional surrender. And then Baby Boy is Libra's flirtation and sensuality. Altogether, when you look at this album, it represents her solo emergence. And as a Virgo sun, it would show how technical refinement gets added to the mix. The themes of B-Day are female empowerment, independence, and assertion, and they activate her Aries rising and Mars in Leo. With her Aries rising, it represents her identity breakthrough and her bold self-definition. And then Mars in Leo represents her stage presence, dominance, and performance power. What gives B-Day the attitude, vocal agility, and sharp delivery is her Libra Mercury sextile Leo Mars. Songs like Deja Vu reflects Mars in Leo's dramatics and rhythmic intensity. Upgrade You would be the Aries' confidence and her status elevation. Ring the Alarm being Mars' aggression and confrontational energy. This album has a lot of Mars energy in it, so it's no wonder it's incredibly loud, bold, and performance driven. This is where we begin to see Beyonce begin to take control. I Am Sasha Fierce is her 3rd studio album, and this is where we begin to see the emergence of Beyonce's alter ego, Sasha Fierce. The themes of this album are duality and identity split. Now what's interesting is that Gemini rules duality in astrology, and both her 2nd and 3rd houses are both in Gemini. And in this context, it doesn't just suggest duality, but it suggests the conscious splitting of her identity for the purpose of expression. A Gemini's 2nd house would represent multiple identities that are tied to self-value and expression. And the 3rd house would represent the performance of different voices and personalities. If I Were a Boy, I think symbolizes her Libra's perspective shift and emotional intelligence, seeking balance and fairness. Halo is Venus and Neptune's ethereal emotional expression. Beyonce's 4th studio album, 4, is where we begin to see a more mature, reflective, and in-depth side to her. This album is her vocalist era. More technical control and even more emotional artistry. Her Saturn conjunct Mercury is what gives 4 the vocal structure and controlled expression we see. By this point, we've seen how Beyonce's voice has matured and strengthened over time, and Saturn in Libra can attribute to her discipline and refinement. Venus sextile Neptune helps add the soulful and lush artistry of the album. And then again, her Scorpio moon is fully activated here, bringing in even more emotional depth and vulnerability. 1+1 is a great example of this energy. Love on Top is a great example of Virgo precision, with the insane vocal layering and just how she's mastered that skill. And then Best Thing I Never Had is a Libra's emotional closure, balance, and peace restored in a relationship. And then comes her self-titled album Beyonce, number 5 in her discography. One of the most iconic facts about this album is how its surprise drop revolutionized the music industry by prompting the industry to move from a Tuesday release day to Friday like she did. The aspect that stood out the most to me, and I think best reflects this, is her Uranus and Scorpio trine Mars. People with this aspect bring forward-thinking approaches to almost everything they do. They tend to be innovators and are always ahead of the curve. And then her Uranus conjunct Moon represents the surprise release and the disruption it caused the music industry. The themes of Beyonce's self-titled are sexuality, femininity, and autonomy. This is another Scorpio and Libra heavy album, which you'll see is a common theme amongst her albums. Beyonce's Venus conjunct Pluto best reflects the erotic magnetism and obsession throughout the album. We see this perfectly with Drunken Love's emotional and physical obsession. All of the Scorpio and Plutonian energy is the intensity, sensual power, and self-definition in songs like Partition and Flawless. And with this album, it's all about her full Scorpio transformation into an industry icon. Lemonade looks into another side of her Scorpio energy and also takes a look into her Chiron placements. The themes of Lemonade are betrayal, rebirth, resilience, and healing. The healing can be reflected by her Chiron in Taurus. Chiron represents our unhealed wounds. Her Chiron being in the first house of the self means these wounds are around identity, as well as her relationships and womanhood, as Chiron opposes her 7th house moon. Her Scorpio moon is activated in this album in a way of how she processes betrayal. Pluto is destruction that leads to transformation, and her moon opposing Chiron reflects the emotional pain and healing that she experienced. Sandcastles is great for symbolizing Scorpio's vulnerability and the releasing of heartbreak. Sorry is interesting as it can be looked at as Libra's detachment and clarity. Renaissance gives us a chance to look at some other placements in her chart. Her Aquarius 11th house influence and part of Fortune in Aquarius are great examples of how her chart shows up in the album. These two placements alone, in the simplest terms, represent collective impact. The themes of Rennie are liberation, community, joy, and freedom, which are all Aquarius-ruled things. Aquarius also rules innovation, humanitarianism, and social networks. So, her Aquarius 11th house and part of Fortune help emphasize the collective impact this album had, especially as it connects to the Black queer community. Beyonce's Jupiter in Libra, trying to part of Fortune, which added expansion through joy and culture. Her Libra stellium also represents all of the harmony and social connection this album brought. Cuff It screams pure Venus and Libra's love, pleasure, and fun. The cinematic elements to this album and her 3-act trilogy in general activate her Neptune and Jupiter placements. Neptune rules films, and hers, being in the sign of Sagittarius, allows her to be a visionary storyteller. America Has a Problem, I think, encapsulates both Neptune's ruling of drugs and her 6th house placements ruling addiction. Break My Soul is a great example of Aquarius's liberation and Saturn's release of a genre and community that have both historically been oppressed and experienced hardship. After all of the previous albums with heavy Scorpio and Pluto influence, this album is her freedom era. It's all of the pleasure finally after a deep transformation. And then currently her last album to date is Cowboy Carter. This album really activates her 4th house North Node in Cancer and her 4th house Leo Mars. I would say her North Node is at the core of this album, as 4th house North Node is all about lineage, the home, and ancestry. And the themes of Cowboy Carter are ancestry, roots, reclamation, and identity. Now her 4th house Mars in Leo shows how her identity and heritage are expressed through her performances. All of this 4th house emphasis speaks to a cultural return to her roots through music. 16 Carriages reflects emotional storytelling and lineage. Now her Capricorn MC is what reflects her reclaiming the legacy of country music and being in control of it. And that's all we have for this video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know which artists' albums you want me to take a look at next.